Hello again, it's Andy here doing another video, and this is a sort of challenge which was thrown out there by Noble Records Dylan. I saw a video on his channel a couple of weeks ago which he was throwing out this challenge which he called Vinyl Chain Challenge. General idea being showcase 20 of your records, making some sort of link from one to the other, hence the chain. It reminded me a bit of a long-standing radio feature on a couple of guys here on Six Music in the UK, Stuart Marconi and Mark Radcliffe, have been doing it for years, and basically they listeners phone up and make some sort of link from one track to another. So same sort of idea. I'm going to do it in two goes though, because just in the interest of brevity. I'm going to do 10 records now, and then I'll do a sort of second episode linking the 10th one on to down the track to 20. So some of these links are going to be a bit obscure, some of the records are going to be a bit obscure. There's also plenty of classics. I've got quite a lot from my sort of youth in the 70s, but there's also stuff very recent and stuff in the middle, so hopefully it's a good one. I'm going to use the word serendipitous because I like it, but basically these links, to another record are a bit serendipitous in the sense it's a bit random what you're going to find, because you can spot various links and maybe it gives you 2 or 3 choices of records you might go to, so you choose one you're more interested in maybe. But I didn't want it to be very calculated as a start, so I pulled a record randomly out. And it was this very recent one, and the band is Black Midi, and the album is called Hellfire, and this was last year, 2022. It was I think it was my number 6 of the year. Not an easy listen, and tends to divide opinion. But really rewarding if you can get into them. They get tagged as, if you don't know them, they get sort of tagged as rock, which I don't think they are, though the sleeves are. This is their 3rd album, and all 3 of them, the artwork on the sleeve is really magnificent. They're almost a bit, if I use the word proggy, then it's very misleading, because they're absolutely nothing like 70s prog or even sort of like later stuff like Porcupine Tree. There's even a bit of jazz fusion in there, but again, it's not like old school jazz fusion. It's like imagine ultra modern jazz being fused somehow with rock. Really interesting band. So where do we go? Hellfire. There's lots of stuff around fire and things like that. One of the more interesting links I did consider is the singer and guitarist is a guy called Geordie Greach, who I believe hails from London, so he's not a Geordie, because Geordies of course come from the northeast of England around Newcastle. So there could be Newcastle bands, Lindisfarne is an example, and also artists, think of Sting, Brian Ferry, they're all Geordies. So, but actually, on this album, happens to be resplendent in red vinyl, and there with its very arty label. So I'm going to use red vinyl as the link, and go to an album which is sort of 20 years old roughly, one I'm really fond of, and the band is called Gotan Project. And the album is La Revencia del Tango, which I believe, according to Google Translate, means Revenge of the Tango, but and it's a fabulous album. It is, as I said, it's the link is red vinyl, and really interesting band. I saw them I bought this originally on CD when it came out in 2002. Came across this vinyl version a couple of years ago, I think, and I loved the album that much that I got it. Saw them in 2003. Amazing concert, it really was. There were people dancing in the aisles. Who are they? Well, if you don't know them, they're basically a couple of French DJs and a street band from Buenos Aires. So, you know, it's all this sort of Argentinian tango. It's got Latin beats, but, you know, it's all pulled together by a couple of French DJs. So, sounds a weird concoction, but it's a concoction which really works. So, if you don't know it, do try it. So, Gotan Project, La Revenja del Tango, where does that take us? Well, tango, of course, is a dance, as is a foxtrot, which takes us to Foxtrot by Genesis. And one of my favourite albums ever, top 10 perennially. I saw them, I'm linking in where I have seen some of these bands, and there's a few I have, lots I haven't. I saw them in 1973, and if I mention along here where I've gone to concerts with some of the women in my life, this was the first one. I think I just turned 16 with my teenage sweetheart. So there you go. That was a long time ago. I still love to this day the classic long track Supper's Ready. I mean, it still gives me goosebumps. It can bring a tear to my eye. I have to sing along to it, which is painful for anyone listening. A little bit for sort of record collector cover nerds. So this album, you can tell it's a first issue because the artwork is contiguous across the spine. The spine is part of that. Whereas later reissues and things like that, the artwork stops at the spine, it's just printed. I mean, you can hardly see the printing on this anyway because it's so tatty. And it's got the original from early 70s Charisma label. So, Foxtrot, one of my favourites, where does that take us? Well, one of the tracks on here, in fact the opening track, is called Watcher of the Skies. And of course a watcher is a sort of like sentinel, otherwise known as an Argus, which of course leads us to an album of very similar period to Foxtrot. I can't remember if this is 71 or 72, maybe 71. And another one of my favourites, it's one I didn't see at the time, to be fair, though I did see one of the various lineups more recently do this live. Great album, the classic original lineup of the Ted and Martin Turner. I don't think they're related, I could be wrong on that. Andy Powell and Steve Upton, the drummer. Absolute killer, all killer, no filler. Just think of the tracks on here. Time Was, Sometimes the World, Blowing Free, The King Will Come, Lee from Stream, Warrior, Throw Down the Sword. Absolutely fabulous. And a pioneer of that sort of dual lead guitar, where they're taking it in turns to lead and sometimes dueling a little bit. Absolutely fabulous. So where do we go next? Well, I mentioned the track Warrior, and a warrior, of course, struts his stuff on the battlefield. And battlefield is one part, and the standout to me, one part of the epic Tarkus track by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And this is the Tarkus album, another one, 71, so similar age to those. Bit of coincidence really, but these are all records I really like. I did have it originally, but this is the 50th year anniversary issue, and it's a picture disc. Actually, this was Record Store Day 2021, so 2 years ago about now, and it's got Tarkus on the front and the Manticore and his mates on the back, put it away so it doesn't get scratched. Some people sort of reckon that picture discs aren't good quality, but I sort of quite like them. I'm a bit of a sucker for them, and I've never had a really bad one. So where do we go now? Well, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, obviously 1/3 of which is Greg Lake, who also, before he joined Emerson, Lake and Palmer, was the bassist and singer on the debut album by King Crimson, In the Court of the Crimson King. This is not an original, so I didn't have it. I mean, it came out in '69. I was 12 at the time. This stuff was way too sophisticated for me. It's I really got into King Crimson a bit later on. In fact, a fair bit later on, to be honest. And I've gradually been picking up vinyl copies where I see them. I've got most of their classic albums, should we say, on CD. And again, it's a great one. Everyone knows it, so I'm not going to dwell. So where next from In the Court of the Crimson King? Well, Fripp, of course, was it. Robert Fripp is the lead. It's his band, isn't it, King Crimson, and the lead guitarist. And he was also the lead guitarist on the Berlin trilogy that David Bowie produced. So most of those classic, those 3 albums, he did, if not all of the lead guitar, at least some of it. And certainly played on this album, Heroes. So a lot of people prefer Low, and I like Low, but Heroes is my favourite. I just love the track as well. I can listen to it endlessly. This is a reissue, fairly recent reissue. Some reason I had never had it on the original, and it's there you go. So I'm not going to say much about it. Everyone knows it. Where are we going from here? Well, Berlin is that was in Berlin, and the next album I'm going to is Public Sector Broadcasting, Bright Magic. So this is another recent one, 2021. It was, if not my favourite of the year, then certainly top 3. And the link really is that this, the theme of this album is a homage to Berlin. Berlin is as a city, as a capital, but particularly as a crucible for music. Like Bowie and that period, but many others as well. So if you don't know public service broadcasting, they're really interesting, quite slightly eccentric English band. And typically, I mean, they use they name themselves public service broadcasting because essentially they're starting out producing music around old public service broadcasting samples. So, the first album was about the Second World War, and it used loads of old BBC samples, wartime samples, which are a bit familiar to us in the UK because we've heard it all before, but very innovatively building music around it, which really worked. I mean, their classic album was the second, Race for Space, which used loads of samples of Sputnik, Gagarin, the moon landings with samples from Mission Control Houston, and talking through the landing, but really innovatively producing music around it. Sounds a bit weird, but if you don't know it, listen to it. This album has much less samples, but it does have a fair amount of narration. There's a mix here of English and German. The standout track to me is Ich und die Stadt, which I understand, which I believe, I'm assuming here, means either the city and I, or maybe more literally me and the city, which features a sort of narration by somebody called Nina Hoss. Don't know who she is. I don't know what she's saying because it's all in German. I don't speak it, but it sort of doesn't matter. It just flows. It's just a lovely voice, and it's so atmospheric. I can't get enough of this album. It is absolutely superb. Another one, if you don't know it, try it out. So where are we going from here? Well, Magic, and in the Morning of the Magicians. And I got a bit of a clue here. It's Pink Floyd. It's Pink Floyd. It's Pink Rock even. My original T-shirt from going to see the Flaming Lips and Yoshimi battles the Pink Robots 50 years ago, basically, fairly early. I think February 2003 I saw them. It was the first concert I went to with Marion, my current wife, and it is amazing. Now, I had it when it came out first in 2002. I bought the CD, was wowed by it, absolutely fabulous, and we went to see them, and then, you know, really they were sort of our band. It was a totally bonkers gig, and it was really up there with one of the just experiences. And this has come out only a week ago. It's 20th anniversary reissue. This is a box set. But I had to have it. It's got all the usual sort of B-sides and demos and radio shows and various other things. And I'm going to see them this week. They're touring Yoshimi. They're going to play the whole album, and I shall be donning my my T-shirt for that, I think. So where does that take us? Well, robots. A humanoid robot, of course, is an android. Which takes us, and there's a track Paranoid Android on the album OK Computer by Radiohead. This, coincidentally, so I could have used a separate link for this. This is also a 20th anniversary reissue, so there's a bit of a double link there back to that Yoshimi box set. So this is a triple. I mean, obviously, 97. I wasn't buying vinyl at that stage. It was that in between period, wasn't it? So I had, like most people, I think, the CD when it first came out. But I bought this one. It's got the whole, on its triple. It's got the original and plus a whole bunch of tracks which were recorded at the time, but didn't make the cut onto the onto the album. So that's my number 10, and it's where do we go from here? So I'm going to do another. I'm going to use this then as the start for sort of episode 2, if that makes sense. And there's various places we could go. We got radio, computers. There's craft work and things like that we could do. There's about electioneering, karma police. There's police. Exit music for a film, films, soundtracks and things like that. It's on Parlophone label, so and of course famously it was recorded in Studio 2 at Abbey Road, the place where the Beatles did most of their stuff and Pink Floyd did most of their stuff. So there's plenty to go at here, and I'll reveal that at the beginning of the next episode. So I hope you enjoyed it. I've tried to whiz through those, so it's not it's not too long a video. And please come back and watch the next one. And thanks for watching. Cheers.